Good morning, everyone. This is the fifth video sermon of the West Leroy Bible Church in East Leroy, Michigan, broadcast from my home. The title of the message today is Living on Purpose, Part 14. So, how do you deal with situations that you have no control of? Situations where there is a combination of fear, uncertainty, and even unbelief. In Genesis 44, we see that Joseph gave his older brothers yet one more test. The Lord was using Joseph to bring his brothers to the next level of God's plan for them. This test would separate the men from the boys. Joseph's brothers were now dealing with something that put them way out of their comfort zone. It was one thing to be accused of being spies, even though they were not. They could at least prove by their actions that they in fact had a younger brother when they brought Benjamin back with them to prove their innocence. But to be accused of being thieves with planted incriminating evidence found, that was something that left no room to prove their innocence. They knew this was something they were completely innocent of, and that they were being set up for a fall that was unfairly placed upon them. But there was no escape. They were stuck and at the mercy of their accusers. God was allowing them to experience some of what they put Joseph through. Well, there are three things that we consider today of what it means to live on purpose as illustrated in Genesis chapter 44. Living on purpose is something that we do willfully based on a relationship with God. And we know as we read the story of Joseph that Joseph had a relationship with God. He trusted God. It says at the very beginning of the story that the Lord was with Joseph and blessed him and prospered him. There's something significant about that, and we've talked about it before, that God does not force himself upon us. At some point in time, we submit to God, and when we do, something wonderful happens. He meets us at the crossroad of surrender, and we discover his presence. And we have the wherewithal and the mindset to be able to think rightly, and to speak rightly, and then to act rightly. Well, there are three things that we want to consider today of what it means to live on purpose. The first thing is found right away in the first 13 verses of the text: being transparent when confronted. Being transparent when confronted. I think I can safely say that no one likes to be confronted, whether it is something you are guilty of or not. Confrontation is an uncomfortable thing. And yet we all at times are faced with some sort of confrontation as a means to bring clarification or to get the real facts as they are. When you are asked, did you take care of that mess you made and you forgot about it? That kind of confrontation makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. Happens to me on a regular basis. Did you pick up the groceries? Did you bring the garbage can down? Did you do what you promised to do on this project? And I admit, sometimes I get sidetracked and overlook and I forget what I promised to do. So confrontation has a way of making us feel uneasy, sometimes guilty, and rightly so. And sometimes out of a defensive reaction, you may become upset or even angry. In the first part of chapter 44, Joseph gave instructions to his steward to plant the silver cup in the grain of Benjamin's sack, along with the silver they paid for the grain. He then sent his steward after the brothers when they'd left on their way home with the grain that they bought in Egypt, and told his steward to confront them and to accuse them of stealing his silver cup. And here's where we begin this morning as we consider what it means to live on purpose. The first thing is being transparent when confronted. There are three things that are needed when we're confronted, when the confrontation is warranted, or whether the confrontation is warranted or not. And this was the case with Joseph's brothers. Here's the first thing that we notice as we look at the text. It was a time for introspection. We notice right away as we look at chapter 44, the steward meets up with them and accuses them and mentioned that the silver cup was missing. And notice what the response was of the brothers. They said right away, verse 6, when he caught up with them, he repeated these words to them, the words that Joseph told them. But they said, to him, "Why does your Lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become your Lord's slaves." When the accusation was made, it was a time of introspection. That's the first thing. To do some serious thinking. The brothers knew that no one would even think about stealing anything, especially from this Egyptian master, his silver cup. And they were pretty confident. So much so that they were so bold to say that whoever was found to have the cup will die. And then we'll become your Lord's servants, slaves. There's a second thing that we find, not only a time for introspection, but a time to look at the facts as they are. As you look at the text in verses 8 through 11, as they emptied their sacks, the brothers were convinced that the Egyptian steward would not find anything out of order, or for the most part, he would not find for sure that silver cup. There's a third thing that we find, a time to discover what needs attention. Unfortunately, as they emptied all the sacks, as we look at the text, verses 12 and 13, the silver cup was found in Benjamin's sack. This was a discovery that took them all by surprise, and then they were struck with fear. Confrontation can do that, but it is even worse when you know that you have been set up and there's nothing you can do about it. The principle is clear. Living on purpose is about being transparent when confronted in order to reveal the truth. Living on purpose is about being transparent when confronted in order to reveal the truth. Well, we're going to end our first video. This is video 1 of 3. We'll see you on the next video.